After 7 stages of the Dakar, the rest day took place on the shores of the Pacific Ocean. But it was anything but a rest day, as it became apparent that Mark Comer had changed a rear wheel during the neutralised part of the previous day's stage, much against the rules. Analysis of TV footage comparing Dupre's tyre back-to-back with Comer's tyres took place late into the night that gave the stewards enough evidence to come to their decision. The decision of the bike jury has given a penalty of 6 hours to Mark Comer. I think it is an injustice. It's not been proven that I changed a wheel. For Comer, it was a massive blow to his rally, and indeed a massive blow to the Spaniard's reputation. The second half of the Dakar starts with some terribly difficult stages on the run down towards Copiapo from the venue of the rest day, La Serena, and then the capital city of Santiago that finishes off the Chilean side of things before the climb back over the Andes into the spectacular setting of San Juan, the heat of San Rafael, and then onwards to Santa Rosa. The second half of the 9,000 kilometres and 14 stages would be completed into Buenos Aires, where the first winners of 2010 would be crowned. The Argentina-Chile Dakar for 2010, same places, new adventure. 96 bikes took to the start of stage 8 from the 151 that left Buenos Aires on New Year's Day. It was a very cold start after a 96-kilometre road section before the 472 racing kilometres that they would then tackle. Yet another stage in Chile, and everybody cheering on Chaleco. The massive following for Francisco Lopez aboard the Aprilia V-twin. Everywhere he went, he was mobbed, but the fever and fervour only added to his speed and his spirit. He clocked his second stage victory of the rally. I had a bad day when I broke my chain yesterday, and then for the rest day I was really motivated to make a good result here into Copiapo with all these people waiting for me. I'm very happy to give them this victory, these great Chileans who have followed me. Oliver Setter damaged a fuel line right at the very end of the stage when he fell off just 20 kilometres before the end. Were it not for that, he might have won it, but he stayed in second overall. Comer did take the start after he threatened he may pull out, following that controversial 6-hour penalty. But for Dupre, the overall leader, he hit 2 rocks hard halfway through the stage and was in quite a bit of a panic in the refuelling area to try and change the broken front wheel, swapping it with his teammate Ruben Faria.
Regarde ta warrière comment elle est.
Dupre was working at fever pitch to make sure he didn't lose any time or even his rally. Amazingly, the rear wheel was banged up too, but with no air needed in the tyre because of the mousse insert, it didn't matter so much. He was very lucky to still keep his overall lead at 1 hour and 20 minutes, even though he was 5th on the stage. The hand of the desert, not far out of Antofagasta, was to give nearly everyone punctures on the stage into Copiapo. The man who was on course to win that stage was Gerland Schischerit, who led at the first checkpoints. But 2 punctures eventually lost the Frenchman 22 minutes. His day was to come later. Were it not for that broken prop shaft on stage 5 that lost Peder Hansel 2¼ hours, he'd have been leading overall at this point. The stage win instead proved the 2010 pace of the BMW. Sainz was over the moon to get to the end of the stage. It was one of the biggies that was playing on his mind. He must have been unsettled through the stage when he had to change 2 punctures, and with only 2 spares, he was cautious over the last kilometres. Just as a random number of the day, Sainz changed gear over 2,000 times on the stage, once every 8 seconds. Stage 9 was a mass start from Copiapo down the coast to La Serena, but the threat of fog cut the stage in half. But it was the more difficult half that was still left in, as the bikes left the line motocross style, 20 at a time. Spectacular stuff as always on the stage as they leapt into the dunes. The top 10 bikes left the line thrashing into the distance. Cyril Dupre played it pretty cool along most of the stage, but only for a while. Getting caught out over this rocky outcrop flicked him off. He could have fallen awkwardly, twisted a wrist, or even damaged the bike. Nervous times for the leader, who was there to be caught. Coma, the man who was to be the rival of Dupre on this rally, was now 7th overall. That 6-hour penalty still being muttered about darkly in some corners of the bivouac as unfair. Not in the steward's office. Oliver Alseta was second behind Dupre and working wonders on the Team Scandinavia bike. It's still one day further on in the rally, another victory, so I'm happy. The tyres are still perfect though.
Perfecta, igual que novo.
De Villiers was being the loyal Volkswagen driver now that his chances of overall victory had gone. He pulled over, waiting for Alatia to start the stage.
How many minutes? Check. He will start in 20 seconds.
It was a massive PR coup for Volkswagen if they could get a 1-2-3 on the Dakar. They didn't want to mess anything up. But Carlos Sainz ran into early problems on the stage when he punctured. He started the day with a 14.5-minute lead and had already lost 6.5 minutes at the first checkpoint. Frantically, he tried to gain time back at the second checkpoint, but only 16 seconds could be found on the now meteoric flying Nasser Al-Attiyah, who was leading the stage and attacking Carlos Sainz's lead. Come the line, Al-Attiyah had taken nearly 6 minutes out of Sainz's lead to leave the difference between them at just 8.5 minutes. Less than De Villiers' winning margin at the finish line 12 months earlier, and yet there were still 5 stages remaining. The loser of the day was to be Stefan Perrahansel, who gambled on a shortcut with his BMW X3. But the 9-time Dakar victor got caught. He ran into problems in the camel grass at the base of the dunes. The Dakar driver's worst nightmare. He lost over 20 minutes as he struggled to get out. The biggest loser of the day was Krzysztof Holovic from 6th. His rear diff had failed and he was out. The cruel breakdown proving that Lady Bad Luck can be just over the next June. Frenchman Nicolas Gibon was leading the T2 class in his Toyota Land Cruiser. He says the T2 is a standard car with just a little modification for this Dakar rally. Brakes and brake pads, they are to be kept as standard. The chassis is standard and we're only allowed to add some pieces in order to strengthen the chassis as per the regulations. And with the engine, that is absolutely original as well. Toyota, they continue to take the T2 category of the Dakar very seriously, all for a fraction of their F1 costs. He says the budget is €2 million for 2 cars, which is enormous. It's more money than some of the big guys have got for their T1 cars. Stage 10 from La Serena down to Santiago. After being victorious on the previous stage, Nasser Al-Attiyah had closed the overall lead of Sainz, now down to 8.5 minutes, less than last year's winning margin. If he found another 6 minutes as he had done on the previous day, then it would all close up for that finale to the line and into Buenos Aires. But Al-Attiyah couldn't quite find the pace that he had had 24 hours earlier. He was on the limit and then some. The battle between them was electrifying, but it was to be Sainz who sneaked 1 minute and 40 seconds on Al-Attiyah into Santiago. He'd won his first stage of the year to have a lead now of just over 10 minutes with 4 stages remaining. Sainz had crashed out 12 months earlier while pushing. This year, it was certainly Al-Attiyah who was on and over the limits. 80 kilometers before the end, we caught Nasser and we stayed behind him because he wasn't listening to his electronic sentinel warning system to let us past. Stefan Hansel suffered with brakes that overcooked themselves. He ran on into many of the corners, lucky not to tip it over the edge. While all of the action was taking place at the forefront of the field, the leading petrol-powered car was still Carlos Souza in a safe 6th. Gordon was still on the bubble of the top 10, but struggled again with the restricted V8 and the 2-wheel drive of the Hummer. Janil de Villiers, no chance of victory. He was just a flying mechanic, but it still didn't stop him getting lost.
Where's the pole? Never saw the pole. I think it was that road. You're on the right road, up there. He's going wrong. Turn around. Use that road.
Where the fuck is he now?
He's behind us.
No, he went in there, but I don't know why he didn't come past.
Go ahead.
He wasn't the only one to run into problems. This bizarre hole magnetizing cars into it. Fortunately, the mass of the fans were out there and soon everybody was back, rubber side down. BJ Baldwin with his Hummer went into a rather smelly pit, but everybody got him out and soon the American was on his way. Nikolai Gibon was continuing to lead the T2 class with his Toyota, but he rolled it towards the end of the stage. He was unable to restart the engine, and he was out. Ahead of the bikes continued to be Cyril Dupre, who was surely on his way, safe and sound, to a 3rd Dakar victory. With 1 hour and 22 minutes of an advantage, he kept out of the limelight and on the road to get to the trophy. He finished a secure 6th. Comer was still smiling and still ticking off those stage victories, readying his charge for next year's Dakar. The stage suited David Fretenier. It was just up his street. 2nd into Santiago and 6th overall, but only 13 minutes behind Alain Duclos, who was feeling the pace from the 450 Yamaha bearing down on the KTM. Not only was Duclos feeling the pressure, he was, well, trying to keep it cool out there in the heat of the mountains. So after 10 stages, Dupre had an advantage over Olav Alceta that was more than safe. Lopez, Rodriguez and Duclos.